up, everyone? Today we're working on Rusty Emerson's Camaro again, and Rusty's all about the bling. I know it's hard to hear me over Joey grinding over there, but we're gonna do a complete billet pulley swap on this thing. You can see the pulleys now, they're just the OEM. We've got the ATI balancer down here, which is, that's a good thing, but we want everything to match. So we reached out to Texas Speed and got the complete Innovators West billet pulley set up for this car. You've got your power steering pulley, your water pump, your alternator, both your idler and tensioner, and finally your harmonic balancer here. So really nice setup. Kind of leery about swapping the water pump pulley, which I'm going to document my experience with that. Not really a lot of videos out there showing guys that have done it successfully. I did find one, but it's kind of vague, so I'm going to document how aggravating it is trying to get the pulley off this factory water pump over here. So here we go. Alright, I don't know if you can see me, but as far as the idler pulley here, just a 15mm, buzz that right off. I started to take the alternator off, but it's really not needed. This one, you just pop it off with a ratchet. And the alternator just gets you something to kind of hold the pulley halfway. And I used an electric impact gun. You're never going to quit pulling air. And just pop the nut off, wiggle the pulley, and there you go. Now we'll go get our billet pulley. Now we have our billet pulley here. This is our old pulley. The diameters are the same. This is a 10 rib. This is a 6 rib, but we're still going to use a 6 rib belt on it. This is just the only way we can get all the billet pulleys, is to convert everything to 10 rib. Then we're going to go get our idler pulley. There's our idler pulley. Make sure it's a slick one. This bolt, I'll probably have to, well, I can maybe unthread it. We'll have to take this little holder off to get the bolt out. And then pull your bolt out. You will also have to put this little sleeve inside that pulley, which I'll have to cut the camera here and hammer it out, because I got to go over to the table to do it. But make sure you put that, see it inside there? Put it inside of here. Makes the hole smaller where it stays centered on that bracket. So I'm horrible at reading instructions. It comes with an insert to go in your idler pulley here, so you don't have to transfer the one off the OEM pulley. It comes with a washer on the other side, which is kind of floppy, but just make sure you get it centered once you start tightening down on it. That way it looks presentable. And the pulley goes this way with the spacer on the back. If you don't do it that way, it will rub the bracket. Pretty self-explanatory whenever it won't turn once you bolt it up. So there we have our idler and our alternator pulley on. I'll tighten everything up at the very end. Now we're going to tackle the power steering, which I've got a puller and stuff for that I'll use. Okay, we've got the factory power steering pulley off. Came off pretty easy. This little Amazon power steering puller kit. I think this one was like maybe 30 bucks or something like that. But looking at the new pulley, to press it back on, it looks like we're going to have to take the hub out in the middle of it, because our tool is bigger than the inside there, so you want to be able to get it in between those bolts. So we're just going to press the hub on, and the pulley will bolt on separate after the fact. So let's go ahead and get that done. Okay, we have the power steering pulley, the idler pulley, and the alternator pulley all installed and tight. And I had a little bit of trouble with the power steering pulley, and it was mainly because I didn't think it was far enough on there, but apparently the hub doesn't press on quite as far as the factory one did for the billet pulleys, so make sure you pay attention to that. Another thing I have noticed right off the bat is this pulley face and this pulley face are completely flat with each other in line, but the alternator pulley is stepped in about a rib width. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to pull that off and put some type of spacer behind it to make sure that it is even with these. And they tell you in the instructions, which I haven't read through completely, but I did read enough to say to make sure that all these pulley faces are lined up. The water pump can kind of float because it's got a pretty wide spot on it, but your rib pulleys must line up or your belt's going to walk off and high RPM. So we're going to take this back off and put a little spacer on it, put our straight edge here and try to get these flat, and then we're going to move on to the water pump pulley, switching it, which it'll be a task, it looks like, in itself. Our tensioner pulley here, I've already got it loose. It's a no-brainer. Just drop it on and it's done. It's already the correct diameter inside the bearing. It's got a little shoulder at rest on, so we'll get that taken off the water pump to where we can finish getting this pulley off. Might actually grind this out like I've seen, where we can use our wherever it is, our power steering puller here to get it off. Seems like a much simpler way than trying to heat this or damaging the seal on the water pump or anything, so we're going to probably try that first. Alright, we're going to take a couple steps back and I'm going to tell you a little something that I missed. It's pretty obvious now. I knew that this company would not make pulleys that didn't line up. That just wouldn't make sense as expensive as these things are. So backtracking, I found out that this little washer that I put there that was in the bag with that spacer behind this pulley does not go there. It is actually the washer that goes in the alternator to space the pulley out just slightly to make it even with these. So don't make that same mistake. Make sure you put this washer in the alternator, then put the pulley on. It'll put the spacing where it needs to be with these faces. Well, that went pretty smooth. A lot of grinding, but you can see basically turn the water pump pulley into like you would see on a power steering pulley. Ground it out where I could use a tool. I actually had to flip the tool over and use the side that had a bigger bite just to grip it, because this thing was on there really good, like a lot more than the power steering pulley. So now that that's off, we get to press the other one on. And to do this, get the water pump flipped around here, we have to take the back off the water pump, and we've got to press it down like that so you don't blow the shaft out of the back pressing it on the front. So we're going to start taking that apart and see how that goes. That wasn't too bad. I used a gasket scraper, pretty thin, got a sharp edge on it, and a screwdriver, and just worked my way around it until I got it off. Basically a big freeze plug is all it is. This will expose the water pump impeller. This is your shaft, so you'll be pressing right there to press the pulley on the bottom. That way you're not damaging this wheel in here or trying to push it out the backside of the pump. So we're going to get set up on the press and try to get that done. So while I was pressing it on, I kept trying to turn it to make sure it wasn't going to hit the water pump, and sure enough, when I got it pressed on right about where it was supposed to be, it started to hit the water pump, the housing. So I brought it over here and unbolted the pulley, and I have clearanced the water pump right there. I don't know how many thousandths I took out of it. I mean, I just pretty well sanded it with a flapper wheel until it had a pretty good amount of clearance. I mean, it's not got a lot of clearance. It probably has, you know, a few sheets of paper or something like that. That'll be good enough for this. So we're going to bolt it back up. We're going to put the back on. I'll probably clean the back here, clean that up real good on the inside of this, make sure it seals off really good. and then it'll be good to go back on the car. So after that, the only thing we have to do is the crankshaft pulley with a balancer, and we'll be done with this pulley swap. Alright, so we have got all the pulleys installed now. The only thing we haven't done is install the crankshaft bolt, because the one Innovators West sent, it's just like a standard hardened bolt, and this customer wants to use the ARP, so you're gonna have to use the longer ARP crankshaft bolt for the LS. I think it's 132 millimeter. The bolt that they sent was 140 millimeter, but then you've got a pretty good size spacer underneath, which won't be used because the ARP bolt will come with a pretty thick washer on it. So we got that bolt coming. Just wanted to show you what everything looks like installed. Very nice setup. Everything went pretty smooth. Just the water pump's the only thing you're gonna have to work at a little bit. Like I said, the best way is probably to grind that out and do it like a power steering pulley. That way you can use the same puller and it come off pretty good, thanks to the guy that I seen on YouTube that had actually done that. And I think he had a little bit tougher time than I did with it, but I didn't want to mess up the shaft or anything on the water pump, so I just went straight to that method first, and it seemed to work great. So hopefully this video will help some other guys that are going through this, and maybe it'll go pretty smooth for you. So that's that. Innovators West billet pulley setup for 5th Gen Camaro. See you later.